Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another Steel Curtain Network post-game show. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. The Steelers lose an absolute dud, 13-6 in Cleveland, and it's a game of missed opportunities. We'll talk about it all on this show. Let's bring in Dave. What's up, Dave?
Hey, Jeff. How's it going? That was about as disheartening as you could take. I know I was saying with stuff before. I'm like, I said on the preview, well, Jeff talked about, MVS, he'd be the guy they'd probably put in that DK Metcalf role. Well, they tried to put him in that role and it did not work.
No. All right, Bryan Davis, what's up?
So many precarious things in this game, gentlemen. I just am befuddled. I am just disillusioned right now. I don't know what to say. They had every opportunity to win this game, and they should have never put themselves in the spot. There's no referees to really blame here. The beginning was ugly with the refs, but they're the ones that put them in this position where they had every opportunity. I thought some very dumb decisions in this game. I think some dumb decisions before this game even started, and I got to tell you, not looking forward to next week.
Well, let's start with knee-jerk reactions for the three of us, and I'll go ahead and start. I started off today trying to be like the optimistic guy, and I put on Twitter, if you went on social media this morning after the Ravens lose or the win in Green Bay and the way they did it, you would have thought that the Steelers were 13.5 point underdogs going into Cleveland, and it was just everyone was down. I get it. And I was like, you know what? Like, this team can still just take care of business. And even if it's ugly, get a win on the road, you punch your ticket. But early in this game, I found myself watching and thinking that we're going right into this lull once again. And it sucks. It's the second straight year the Steelers have had an opportunity before week 18 to clinch the division, and they failed to do so. This was a very, very frustrating game. Early, it was the defense. It turned into the offense. I don't know. That's my initial reaction. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, it was. I do believe, I'd have to go back and look this up. I do believe this is the first game all season the Steelers never led. I think they've led in every game all season. They got down. They warmed up to it on defense. They gave up a touchdown on a play that, should have. It was such a bad pass. They didn't think they didn't look to intercept it. It was so bad. You score on that fluky play. Otherwise you basically shut them down. This was really about the offense not being able to do anything. And who would have thought that you would have said that the offense wasn't able to do anything on a day where they rushed for 131 yards with 5.5 yards per carry? It was the offensive execution. It was the offensive game plan. It was the sequence of play calling throughout the game. I really hate to say it, but this one really is on the offense.
All right, Bryan, what's your initial reaction?
Well, because of it being not offensive, it became very offensive to watch. And this was a situation where I'm sitting there and saying, all right, they're going to turn it on. They're going to turn it on. And they just could not. I feel like the entire game plan at the beginning of this game was to not let Myles Garrett get the sack record. And I almost feel like that handcuffed them from the start. And then you look at everything else that happened in this game, the losing Darnell Washington to an injury. And we'll talk about that when you guys talk about injuries. But everything else was just blah, and they could not pull themselves out of it on offense. Defense, after they settled down, I thought they were magnificent.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a slow start on offense, and the offense, or slow start on defense. I'm sorry. The offense just never even showed up, like Dave alluded to. Let's get to some super chats here. Before we get to the super chats, Mike Tomlin did allude to, and so did Bryan. Darnell Washington has a broken arm. I believe that's like a forearm, considering that's what he left the game with, the designation. Tomlin wasn't sure if it was going to be a long-term injury or anything like that, but think about the break in Aaron Rodgers'
It's
wrist.
a long-term injury.
He's likely at least out for the rest of the season, which is a bummer because he does a lot for this team. All right, let's go to Dude Soccer 1995 gives us $4.99. Said this coaching staff and owner have killed my love for the Steelers football. Same issues every single year. Can never just handle business. And we were kind of lulled into thinking they had been handling their business. 3 straight wins in December, coming off that big win in Detroit. Just felt like this game was a tough one for whatever reason. Let's go to Philly G, our buddy. He's part of the Steel Curtain Network. Gives us $4.99. Said, I'm not one for conspiracies, but a Week 18 game with 2 teams postseasons on the line, which might even get flex, sounds fishy indeed. Well, they don't have any times for games in Week 18 for this reason, and they do that every year. So this isn't like it's some grand conspiracy, but I got to be honest, when you looked at this week of games and the potential games going into next week, I was talking about to Dave with this before we hit record, there were not a lot of games that meant anything. So the NFL is going to want meaningful games on both Saturday and on Sunday. I'll let you guys talk about conspiracy theories for a second. Dave, you buy in or no?
I bought into the possibility that you could see some sketchy stuff happening coming into this game. To me, this was just the Steelers' offense sucking. I mean, it really wasn't that. I'll even say, was that pass interference on the 4th down play? It was. Am I going to throw a fit about that? No, because the Steelers should have been up by 2 touchdowns before the end of the game anyway. It never should have even come down to that. So I'm not making any kind of excuses for that. I don't think that the Steelers were fixated on Myles Garrett not getting the record. I really don't. I think they were fixated on Myles Garrett, doing what Myles Garrett does, and you have to take care of him. I think the record thing was irrelevant. I think that's a fan narrative. I just think that this offense seemed lost, which is so sad when you run for 5.5 yards per carry in a game that still you turn around and feel like it was just lost.
Yeah. Bryan, thoughts?
We'll just agree to disagree on that because I think they were fixated on it. It felt like it, the way they were doing it. Sure, you can have a guy like that you need to stop, but it meant so much to them and Aaron Rodgers as well, not to get sacked by that guy. So yeah, I will just disagree on that. As far as the conspiracy theories, Dave and I did the show last night, the Q&A, and it seemed more and more like that's what the NFL wanted to happen. I figured some calls were going to go against the Steelers because of it, but the Steelers had plenty of opportunities to overcome it. So there's not a fix here.
Okay. We'll see. There's 2 games now. It's the NFC South and the AFC North next week for all the marbles: Carolina, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. We'll see where they wind up. As of now, we don't. What up, Bryan?
There's one more. There's one more.
The NFC West?
Seattle and San Francisco.
Yeah,
that's right.
They're in. It's not a win and you're in thing.
But it could be for the number 1 seed.
It's for the number 1 seed.
I think you want to put that in prime time. I think that's a bigger deal than when you're in. For the Steelers, I think right now they might possibly be looking at a Saturday night game.
That's what Dave and I were talking about.
Yeah, but the other thing with that one is it's who is it? It's who plays? It's Seahawks and Niners. But it could be that if the Niners win, the Rams get to. I mean, it could even be that it's not the winner of the 2 games. So that might be one that they place.
We typically know. When do we know? Is it Sunday afternoon?
It's usually Sunday Night Football.
Okay.
Well, we're also not going to know about where the Rams stand because they play the Falcons on Monday Night Football tomorrow.
Interesting. All right. Let's go to our next super chat here. King Gores of 15 gives us $5. Says, all I'm going to say is that if Pickens had did what DK did, people would run him out of town. I don't think people were ecstatic that DK Metcalf wasn't in the lineup. I don't know what running out of town looks like when you have no decision to make over the team, but I understand your frustration. Let's go to Kyle, gives us $10. Said this season is functionally over. If you can't beat Cleveland, you're not a threat for the Super Bowl. Cut MVS now. The only positive is maybe Cleveland believes in Shador from this game. He is hilariously bad, ugly throws. There were a lot of ugly throws in that game from Mr. Sanders. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I hope they believe in him because he was not good.
No.
Yeah, that's luckily they have 2 first-round picks if you're Cleveland fans this year because of that trade with Jacksonville, but it's going to be a lot later when they thought, because they thought Jacksonville was going to be bad, and now they're might be a 13-win team. As far as running Baldy Scantling out of town, no.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Tyler W. Gives us $4.99. Says the whole team failed at routine plays, but missing your best offensive and defensive players, the margin was narrow. In both senses, glad Garrett didn't break the sack record. The margin, you talk about if Nick Herbig actually catches and runs into the end zone, the pick 6, which was, I mean, it was given to him on a platter. Mm-hmm. That changes everything. Like that changes if Chris Boswell doesn't miss that 54-yard field goal, which is not a gimme. I'm not saying it is, but if he makes it, changes the whole complexity of the game. The Steelers did not make any plays at meaningful times the entire game. Let's go to Permanent Pictures. Gives us $4.99. 3 end zone targets to MVS is wild. See you next weekend for the annual Henry Bowl. Sure as heck hope not. Let's go to Nick Gabriel. Gives us $5. Said, at least we're over 500. Thought this year was different, but I forgot to read the NFL script this week. If we make the playoffs, it's a one and done. I understand there's going to be a lot of fans that think this way, and I'm not faulting you at all. We've seen this play out before, and until they change and do something different, I don't know. The Last King of Scotland gives us $1.99. Says, void all of DK's guaranteed money. Darn idiot. So the Steelers could, if they wanted to cut ties with him, they wouldn't owe him that money. But reports from Jay Glazer of Fox Sports said earlier today that the Steelers plan on retaining him, in which case he'll get that money eventually. Permanent Pictures gives us another $4.99. The offense scored 6 points, 3 of which was because of a taunting penalty. Can't talk about the refs. That's true. That's very fair. Let's go to Todd Williams. Gives us $4.99. Says, I don't claim to be an NFL coach, but do we run screenplays anymore? They stayed in cover one man the whole game. They didn't run a traditional screen the entire game that I can remember, Dave, did they?
Not, I mean, I'll just say this. I don't think they really ran anything to Gainwell. I mean, Kenny Gainwell's your number one receiver on the team, like in terms of receptions. He only had 4 targets on a game where you're missing your other 2, your top 2 wide receivers. I was just surprised he didn't really get involved in the game plan much at all when he's been one of your bigger offensive weapons. It just didn't seem to make sense. I would have liked to see more screens or other things to him. So I don't know whether you call it a screen or a swing pass or whatnot. The one they tried to run that Myles Garrett interrupted to where the ball couldn't get there to be caught. That was on a 3rd down play, and that actually had a chance to get the first down. So yeah, it didn't seem like they were doing it a whole lot.
Okay, let's go fill us up. Philly G again gives us $4.99. Says the real question is, what does this team do in 1 week to increase offensive potency? No DK and now no Darnell. CA3, he's going to have to come back from his hamstring injury. Roman Wilson didn't even get a target in this game. And where is Muth? Well, you saw him a lot in that last push drive down the middle, and he was wide open. I was asking myself the whole time, they have a inside linebacker who's a rookie who's basically playing on one leg. How are they not finding that matchup? Yeah. Who knows? They get paid on that side of the football too, I guess. All right. Let's go to, thank you all for the tips, by the way. We do appreciate it. Let's go to the stat line. Let's start off with Aaron Rodgers. He goes 21 of 39, 168 net yards, 4.3 average, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked 2 times for 8 yards with a rating of 64.9. What do we think of Aaron Rodgers? Dave, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. You could tell he didn't have very good weapons to get the ball to. It didn't seem fluid. It didn't seem, I don't know, like a lot of those throws to MVS was them not even on the same page. I'm like, you're not on the same page. You're trying to treat him like DK. You're not on the same page. Why you keep going there? I didn't like the long shot on 4th and 1. I'm like, if you're going to run that play, you might as well have kicked the field goal. It just seemed like there was some sketchy decisions and everything with Rodgers in this game. But part of it for me is almost like they almost seem like they were playing scared of Cleveland's defense outside of those 2 possessions at the end of the half. Each one at the end of each half. Other than that, it just seems like it felt like they were playing more not to screw it up than they were actually trying to move the ball down the field and put points on the board outside of the last possession of the first half and then that last one there at the very end.
Bryan, what's your take on Aaron Rodgers?
I've been a champion of Aaron Rodgers. He just had to be average to win this game, but he wasn't today. He was not. I mean, what was that, a 52% completion percentage today? Somewhere around there.
39, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
54.
doing the math in my head. 54? Okay.
54%.
Yeah, just not good enough. But Dave's right about that shot, that long shot. I thought that was a horrible decision. That 3 points there makes a big difference. You get two plays to get back in the game that are, interceptions, and you don't score off of those. A lot had to do with the play calling too, but Aaron Rodgers was not good enough in this game when all he had to do was be slightly better. You could blame the play calling. You can blame it's a collective effort, but that was just it was just not a great performance. When Dave brought up the fact that he's not on the same page with the MVS, we've seen him on the same page with Roman Wilson, and that was one of the decisions I talked about before the game even started. You went in basically myopic, saying we got to get MVS going. We got to go to him. And at the end, you still did that, and it wasn't working. Who had confidence on 3rd and 4th down after those? I didn't. And I had confidence when they were at the 35. I knew they were going to get down there, but when they got down there, it just seems like things stalled, and he's the one who has to will that.
Well, the Steelers went 3 for 15 on 3rd down in this game. So that tells you a little bit about the success rate or that lack thereof. I want to get this on here. Ann Smith gave us $1.99 and says, I think you missed my super chat. And I went back, and for some reason, it didn't get starred by StreamYard. Here we go. Let's bring this up. Ann Smith gives us $4.99, says, congratulations ahead of time to the Ravens on winning the division. After starting 1-4, the Ravens take it all again. Okay. And then Faceless Man gives us $5 and said, Tomlin denied it, but it's obvious. Let an individual record dictate the game plan in a division playoff clinching game is unforgivable, a fireable offense. I want to give my take on this, and this is just my take. They paid a lot of attention to Myles Garrett because he's Myles Garrett, and they don't want him to completely wreck the game. People do that to TJ Watt at times. The problem is that I felt like they gave so much attention to him that it did change their approach to the game. We've seen Myles Garrett have big games or have, make plays against Pittsburgh. I just felt like it was always just, and Dylan Cook, young guy, I get it. You want to give him help. I don't think those two are necessarily tied together. And what I mean is Mike Tomlin saying we don't want him to wreck the game. That's a fact. But did they probably pay him maybe more attention than they usually do? I think so, but it has a lot to do with no Darnell Washington. Dylan Cook's a young player. That's just my own personal opinion. We'll leave it at that. Nicholas Gabriel gives us $5 and said, running on 4th and medium and throwing on 4th and inches is being too cute, as Bad would say. Got to take a hard look at Arthur Smith in the offseason. Yeah, like going deep. I don't understand if the tush push is a possibility, why they're not using it more. That's what I don't get.
I think when Washington went out is what it was.
So you're telling me they don't have anyone else to stand behind him and push him forward?
Come on. Johnny Smith sucks at blocking. I mean,
I understand that.
They kept wanting to have him out there, and he was looking terrible blocking. I agree. You could at least try it with somebody else, but they didn't. So I'm not saying they were right for not trying it.
Right.
I'm just saying at least there was an explanation. I'm not saying it was a good one.
Got it.
It seems like they're abandoning the game plan, just like they abandoned the jumbo package in week 8 or so when Sayamalu went down. I just feel like they abandoned the tush push because Washington was gone, but you've got to have backup plans. Guys get hurt easily in this game in the National Football League, especially in weeks 13 through 18. They get hurt even more in December. Why are you saying, oh, Darnell's gone, we got to scrap the tush push, it's over? You have somebody else in practice doing it. That's bad preparation, and that goes down to coaching.
Yeah. All right.
And planning.
Well, let's go to the offensive. Let's stay on the offensive side of the football. The Steelers do run the ball well. Dave mentioned this earlier. They average 5.5 yards per carry, 24 carries, 131 total yards, and they have a long of 29 yards, which was Connor Hayward's tush push around the end. And even if you take that away, they still go for over 100 against Cleveland. Jaylen Warren, 12 carries for 64 yards, a 5.3 yard average. Like, he's averaging 5 yards a clip, only gets 12 carries. Count Connor Hayward, 2 for 26, Kenneth Gainwell, 7 for 26, Jonnu Smith, 2 for 9, and Aaron Rodgers, 1 for 6 himself. What did we think about the running game? Dave, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, there were times when they let any little thing with the running game get them down. When you're running it for 5 yards a pop, like, I'm thinking, when was it? Was it the start of the fourth quarter? I think it was. They had the ball, and it was 1st and 10. They were in field goal range. They ran it on first down, and they got no yards. So what they do on the next play, they throw out to Jonnu Smith 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he loses yardage. And then what they do in the next play, they take a sack. It's like the second they don't get a fantastic run, it was like, oh, we better pass the ball now. It just felt like the reason the Baltimore Ravens won on Saturday night is that they said, you know what, we're just going to keep running it, and we're going to keep running it, and we're going to keep running it, and we're going to live and die by it. I think if the Steelers chose to live and die completely by the run in this game, that they would have won it. But if they wouldn't have, then everyone would say, well, why else do you have Aaron Rodgers? Well, Aaron Rodgers didn't get it done for him either. I felt that the run game was doing a nice job. I felt it was kind of screwy of when they got away from it.
Yeah, that's fair. Bryan, thoughts?
I also thought the division of labor between Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren was not planned out well in this. They did not go to Kenneth Gainwell enough. It seemed like they abandoned him when he was getting stopped early. I felt like they could have done so much more with him, but it goes down again to the fact that it was just terrible planning the way they did this. But I'm not applauding them for having 131 yards or how many yards they had being over 100, because one of them, and I caution myself before I say this, because I remember 5-6 years ago, we said, well, they would have shut down the Eagles if the one guy Sanders didn't get a 75-yard touchdown back in 2020. They actually had a pretty good game. Yes, but he had it. But I am going to go ahead and say it. That was a gimmick rush by Connor Hayward. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
By Connor Hayward. And it worked. It was great. It was awesome. But that wasn't your running game controlling the game. So for me, that was an 100-yard performance by the two principals in this game.
They ran the ball at a decent clip. That's what I keep on saying. Like, you just kind of wonder, like, you guys bring up great points about the Ravens in Green Bay, and Bryan, what you talked about, just the divisional labor. Nothing makes sense about this team in this game, in the game plan. And we'll continue. Let's talk about our pass catchers receiving. Pat Freiermuth leads the way, 3 catches for 63 yards, a long of 29. He had 5 targets. Scotty Miller was the next best pass catcher at 3 catches, 25 yards on 7 targets. And this is the one that gets me the most. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 3 catches on 9 targets. So he only catches 3 out of 9 for 21 yards. Jonnu Smith had 5 catches, Darnell Washington 2, Adam Thielen 2, Kenneth Gainwell again. Roman Wilson fails to even have a target. Dave, what do you think about the pass catchers?
They weren't on the same page with their quarterback. That's the bottom line. I mean, Darnell Washington was doing just fine, and then he gets hurt. I thought Freiermuth was pretty decent. I think the two non-catch, because he was targeted 5 times with 3 catches. I don't think it was ones that even got to him or were catchable. The way that it worked, I didn't think they worked. I don't think they called on him enough. If I would to change one thing bigger than anything would be Gainwell and Freiermuth were not big enough in this passing attack. You were leaning heavily on MVS, who just couldn't be on the same page as Aaron Rodgers. Scotty Miller, I mean, didn't even catch half of his targets. I thought there would be more from Adam Thielen, didn't even catch half of his targets. It just goes to show that the Steelers wide receivers, when they are a supporting cast, and when they have to try to step up and, rather than be the understudy, they have to fill in for that one show, that show's not going to be a very good performance.
Yeah. Bryan, thought on the pass catchers?
Yeah, that was said very well. There was a couple drops that I didn't like. Thielen had a drop early. Thielen had another one where he didn't get his feet in bounds, but I don't think that was his fault. I thought the ball was thrown very, very high there. I thought the biggest thing, and Dave hit on it, was the fact that they weren't in sync. You can't go ahead and I'm not ripping on the fellow who said it earlier, but you can't go ahead and just say, all right, we're done with MVS, cut him right now, because you got to get on the same page with him for next week if you have any chance to win that game. But the thing is, you can't just say, okay, MVS, you're now DK, and then let everybody else be less primary. I think the big game plan here was Darnell Washington, and when he got taken out of it with a broken arm, they have no other they have no plan B, C, or D. They have plan A. And that's just awful when you don't plan for other things. I don't get it. I mean, we can go back in time to so many things. We could go back almost 20 years to the 2008 season and say, when James Harrison was the long snapper and blew that game against the New York Giants. They have nobody really practicing it, and they like, oh, well, we got to have somebody long snap it. Let's do this. But when you have no plan for when you have somebody go down, I think that's egregious.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They talked about, oh, well, there's always attrition this time of year and everything. Then be ready for it. Then you should at least have something. And unfortunately, maybe what we saw was the plan in case they lost Washington and whatnot, and it was just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I look at MVS is obviously, and I've said this for a while, he was the insurance policy for if DK Metcalf ever gets hurt, and he wasn't hurt, but he was suspended. And here's the difference is that they didn't respect MVS as the threat that DK Metcalf is. DK Metcalf was drawing that safety over the top all the time. And that's why Rodgers kept going to him, because he was drawing one-on-one coverage. But my gosh, at some point, you have to abandon ship and say that this is not working. We need to figure something else out. But no one else is that threat. So here we are again. It feels like for 2 years now, we've been talking about just that lack of a true number 2 wide receiver. And we're just seeing it once again. This is not the first time. All right, lastly, let's go to the offensive line. Again, the Steelers rushed for 131. They only give up 2 sacks. In terms of quarterback hits, they only give up 5. Dave, you're the offensive line guy. What do you think about that group?
Yeah, I still can't figure out where the false start was on Zach Frazier or whoever the crap they were trying to say with number 52.
Officiating was rough.
It was Mike Webster.
Yeah. So it was. I felt the offensive line was doing a good job. I felt you could see the game plan of chipping Garrett and Cook was doing a really good job of picking him up in space. Sometimes that can be difficult for a tackle, but he was doing a nice job with that. I thought in all the offensive line, they weren't an issue in this game.
All right, Bryan.
I really don't think they were an issue either. I still stand by what I said earlier, that the everything's going to me here on coaching, and I don't do that a lot, but I just feel like that's where it was. Coaching game plan was suspect, and you're asking these guys to do some insane things when you could have stopped them easily as different ways. I thought they were just consumed with Myles Garrett, and I know you need to be, but we've seen the Steelers give up 3 sacks to Myles Garrett and win. Yeah. So I don't fault the offensive line. I fault what the offensive line was told to do.
All right. Fair enough. I thought the offensive line, again, with all things considered, no Isaac Seumalo, Dylan Cook. Dave, I don't know if you noticed. I didn't. Did they stick with Andres Pete? Did they rotate Spencer Anderson in?
There was a lot of times. I don't know if they ever had Anderson lined up at guard. They might have, but because I didn't notice all the time. But there were several times I noticed there was no Spencer Anderson on the field, but it was Andres Pete that was at guard.
Okay. All right. So if you're watching live, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. If you're listening on the audio side, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back to talk defense, special teams, and more. Stay tuned. All right, Steeler fans, thank you for being patient. We are back. We have some super chats to get to that have been waiting in the hopper. Philly G gives us another $9.99. Said, here's my final thought. If this team loses to Baltimore, losing the division and a playoff berth after the year both teams have had, do you expect any changes? Can't imagine a worse look for Tomlin. If that happens, I don't know. What do you guys think, Dave?
You know what? That is a really good question. And you know when's going to be a really good time to answer that question? The day after the season's over, whether that be next Sunday or Monday or the following week or whatever. That's a really, really, really good question. But there's still one more set of data points to evaluate. But that's a really good question. It's going to be a lot easier to answer it whenever you get with the final, if that happens or not.
Bryan, do you have a take?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a horrible look for Mike Tomlin. But the problem is the guy who makes the decisions is not Omar Khan. It is absolutely Art Rooney too. And I don't think that it is a big enough concern of his. I think he looks at different things not the way we look at them. So I'm telling everybody that thinks that he's going to be fired. It's funny because you had to twist Art Rooney's arm to fire Matt Canada. But the one thing to think about, there won't be a firing. There would be a mutual decision. If they decide to part ways, it would probably be more mutual. And there's that the Steelers can play that buyout next year, can't they?
I don't know what the details of his contract are.
But Dave's right. It's after the season, but they don't have to. There's a clause in there that they don't have to. They don't have to pay him the.
It's a team option. They have to have this March, not for next year, but for the one after.
Okay,
that's what it is.
Okay. All right, let's go to our next super chat. Squint Eastwood gives us $10. Says, has anyone noticed that we got all the lucky calls in our favor after the fire Tomlin chance for the past few weeks until today, just to set up a Week 18 AFC North showdown? It's hard to ignore. We thank you for the tip. I can't say I agree. Like I love a good conspiracy theory. Like I really do. Like I would wear a tinfoil hat around all the time because I just think that some of it's rooted in truth. I don't know if I can go that far. I don't know if you guys know.
I came out of the womb in a tinfoil cap. I love conspiracy theories too.
Yeah.
I just think that's just the way it fell. If that's the way it's going to be, I would find it a shock because I think that the NFL wanted Detroit in there. They love Detroit, and if I just would have been shocked on that. I think there's so many things to go ahead and look at here. I think there's so much parity in this league, and it's hard to make the right calls when it's going that fast, and you're just the referees just don't keep up with this.
Yeah. All right, let's go to a Steeler fan 69 gives us $5 and a joke. His husband says to his wife, "Want to have some quote unquote fun tonight?" The wife says, "Spell the word way." So the husband says W-A-Y. The wife responds, "You forgot the F." The husband said, "There is no F in way." The wife says, "You got that right."
I actually got my wife on this joke 2 times, except it's the wrong way. It's W-E-I-G-H is the way the joke is supposed to go, because it's W-E-I-F-G-H is what you're supposed to try to spell it. So good try, Steelers fan 69.
I think that's a transcript from my house. I think.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We are going to go to the defensive side of the football, and we're going to talk about the Steelers pass defense. Shedeur Sanders, rookie, goes 17 of 23 for 186 yards, 8.1 yard average. He did throw a touchdown. That was one of the weirdest touchdowns I've ever seen.
The ball was so bad.
If Kyle Duggar is just looking, Duggar has a 2-pick day. Anyways, he throws 2 interceptions. Jack Sawyer had 1. Duggar had the other. Was sacked 2 times for just 2 yards, 75.6 rating. Let's talk about the receiving options. Jerry Jeudy tore up the Steelers in the first half, 5 catches for 54 yards. Cedric Tillman, 1 for 42. Harold Fannin, who left the game in the first quarter after his touchdown catch, had 2 for 30. Brendan Bates, 1 for 19. Isaiah Bond, 1 for 16. They spread the ball around a lot. What did you guys think about the pass defense here? Dave, I'll let you go first.
Well, to really put this in perspective, look at the second half. Well, Sanders did not have a ball hit the ground. He was 5 of 6 with an interception for 21 net yards, 31 net yards rushing. The Steelers held the Browns to 52 yards of offense in the second half.
Yeah.
That should have been enough to win the game.
Fair. Bryan?
No, I thought the combination of them defending very well, and you can't spell sad without Sanders, and that's how he played. I mean, I think he came out hot. I think he came out excited, but when the rubber met the road, I mean, he's not that good, and he's probably riding high and celebrating and like crazy. But I mean, if you look in the mirror, you're like, boy, I got lucky.
Well, and this is true, because we'll crap on Shedeur Sanders, and that's fine. But I'm going to bring this. Spice Creation says his bad ball got in the end zone, something Rodgers couldn't do, which is true.
Yeah.
Which is true. So
but that's exactly what I'm saying. That's how bad the Steelers were on offense.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I thought the pass defense settled in. They were running a lot of zone coverage early, and Shedeur, to his credit, was picking them apart. Finally, they started to make some changes. Jalen Ramsey, I think he got moved. Chuck Clark early in the game they were targeting him early and often. Then they finally started to move Jalen Ramsey back. The defense needs all their pieces. James Pierre, hopefully he can come back. Brandon Echols from his groin injury, we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be
Are we ever going to see Deshaun Elliott again?
I don't think so.
I mean,
he was
not this season.
At Thanksgiving. He was honored for some community service thing, and he said he was just about to ditch the crutches. So you got to think, like, this guy's I think he had surgery, and then it would be like a Super Bowl run would have to happen for him. And that, even then, you think about that, he's just getting ready to walk up like without crutches in November. So I don't know. Nothing official, though. Let's go to the run defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers do a good job against the Browns rushing attack. They hold them to 78 yards on 25 carries, a 3.1 yard average. Dylan Sampson, 11 carries for 27 yards. Raheem Sanders, 8 for 21. And Shedeur Sanders, 4 carries for 20 yards. Travion Williams, 2 for 10. I thought the run defense was pretty good. Dave, you agree or disagree?
Yeah, it was. Better in the second half than the first half. But in all, I mean, and it wasn't as dominant as it was last week, but that's kind of hard to duplicate week in and week out. The Browns aren't the best rushing team ever, but they kept them under their season average by more, more than double-digit yards. So I thought the run defense and all did what it needed to do. The defense as a whole, I think, did a nice job, other than, one bad play in there that gave up a touchdown. They really, if only they didn't have to warm up to it at the very beginning, they could have had a chance to pitch a shutout in this game.
Bryan?
I thought they were good. I thought everything on defense, especially in the second half, Dave says that, and I agree. I mean, I thought everything was good. I think they needed to get past that a little bit in the that first quarter, but after that, everything was great. Just the problem with everything was the fact that they had no help on the other side.
No, I thought the run defense wasn't the issue. And Dave, you brought up the numbers and their lack of production in the second half. But again, offense couldn't get the job done. All right, let's finish up with the pass rush. Obviously, 2 sacks. The Steelers get both of those by Alex Highsmith, who had himself a great game. 2 sacks, 2 tackle for losses, was putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, 4 quarterback hits. But again, like what was weird is Nick Herbig. So he drops the would-be pick 6, which goes down as a pass defense. That was his only stat of the game. No tackles, no quarterback hits. Maybe he wasn't 100%, but even Jack Sawyer was putting some at least pressure, 2 tackles, 1 solo. I don't know. What did you guys think about the pass rush? Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's almost like it almost felt like the goal of the pass rush was to keep Shadur Sanders in the pocket and don't let him scramble. Because think, both sacks came when he was starting to take off and got taken down before he got to the line of scrimmage.
Right,
both of them. It's almost like they wanted him to pass the ball. If you really look at it, but the pass rush, I guess, did a good job of staying in their lane, keeping the scramble from going down. Wasn't anything that really stood out as being like, oh wow, they're just constantly, getting to them, having negative plays. They didn't do that, but they also weren't giving up a lot of positive plays either.
Bryan, thoughts on the pass rush?
I think if they would have got home a little bit more, that you could have seen a ball hit the ground. So it wasn't good enough, but they didn't lose because of the pass rush.
I agree. I do want to talk about special teams here because, well, it did come into play. And I thought Corliss Waitman had a better game. He had 5 punts, 203 yards total, 40.6 average, 5 inside the 20 with a long of 52 and no touchbacks. So I thought he had a good game, but Chris Boswell, he makes 2 out of 3 field goals along a 44. It was the 54-yard kick that he misses. Back-to-back weeks, Boswell's missed a field goal. Any concern there, Dave?
It was a long one. It was over 50, and they were talking on the broadcast about how he hasn't been the strongest from long distance on that field. To me, anytime it's over a 50, I look at it as 50-50, especially with the conditions today. That's what brought up the 50. Usually I think when it's over 55, but based on the conditions, I still think the biggest mistake was not kicking the field goal. I like the aggression of going forward on 4th and 1 when you're in field goal range, but not to run the play that you did. If you're going to run that play, then just kick the field goal.
Was that the go ball to Scotty Miller?
Yeah.
Okay. That was an interesting coaching decision. We'll put it that way. Bryan, thoughts on the special teams and Chris Boswell?
I'm not worried about Chris Boswell. In fact, he was able to make a ball that Waitman mishandled, and that looked like it was going wide, and then it turned right. It made a right turn, I think, is what Tony Romo called it, and because it looked like it was wide, and then it was like a curveball. It was like a knuckleball from Eddie Harris in there, So I kind of felt like the conditions and wet. I'm going to excuse a 54-yard field goal. I know last week's was indoors. You have misses in this league, but no, I don't think that was a problem. Getting back to what Dave was saying, yeah, you hit that field goal, you're in a much different situation in this game if you go for the field goal instead of going for that go ball. I think that is, you're in a completely different situation, and you're not in a point where you have to scramble to try to get down there and win that game and get all or nothing. It's not, the Steelers had no problems going for field goals before and going 6 for 6 with Boz field goals. Heck, they won a playoff game that way. Not too long ago, well, long time ago, but in 16. But Boz is fine. My final thoughts are coaching.
Well, I want to bring that up, and I want to bring up this comment. Water in the Desert says the Browns played harder and they wanted it more. They deserve to win. Now, Dave, we always make fun of you because our keys to victory are always like play hard. Did you think the team was up for this game, or did you think that there was a lack of effort?
Let's see. Can I find the tweet that I put out early on in this game? I'll have to see if I can find it, because the bottom line is, this is what I said. I said I was worried the Steelers would come out and play uninspired in a bit of a letdown. So far, it's looked completely uninspired. That was maybe a few minutes into the second quarter that I said that. And that was the thing. It almost felt like the Steelers were trying to do everything they could to not lose the game. They were trying to, wait for somebody else to make the play. The offense, don't screw it up. Don't give the defense momentum. Don't give, Cleveland in that regard. You can't have that mentality when you go down 10-0 early in the first quarter. You just can't do that. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for how they played, they basically played this game like the first quarter didn't happen. Like they were winning the game 6-0. That's kind of how it played out for them. Now, I admit the Cleveland Browns coming into this game were the number 2 defense in the NFL. They were the number 1 defense against the pass. But part of that was because they were losing a lot of games and teams didn't have to pass the ball against them. Because of that, guess what? You can't let things like that dictate exactly what you do. They say sometimes it's about analytics. Sometimes you take analytics too far. Looking at how they're ranked against the pass and worrying about what you're doing and constantly throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage and things like that, or only doing certain things in the passing game, that's a mistake. I just felt like the offense never really got it going because the Browns definitely didn't respect the Steelers' passing game without DK Metcalf. And the defense, I don't want to put anything on them, but if they don't give up the 10 points in the first quarter, you're talking about the Steelers winning in a shutout.
Yeah. Bryan, if you're going to go into coaching, we can do final thoughts and I can let you go first, unless you want to say something else about what we just talked about.
I'm just going to go ahead and say, uninspired to me is, I usually talk about them in losses not playing with heart. I thought there was some heart there. I thought it was misplaced, though. I think I still go back to the fact that, and Jeff said it well, he thought they were playing scared and of Myles Garrett. I think they went into this game with 1, trying to win, and 2, trying to make sure that Myles Garrett didn't get that sack record. There was a part of me after, and I said this to myself, and I wrote to one of my friends after the second series, I'm thinking, you know what? Just take a sack early. Let him get the record and get it out of your system. Just don't get your head ripped off. In fact, do a Brett Favre there. I don't care. I thought that was a little too much of the worry at first.
All right, we'll go into some final thoughts. I do have this came across my phone on Twitter. Insane statistic. The Steelers are winless, 0-4-1 in their past 5 games versus teams entering the game with 8 or more games below 500. That is tying the longest such streak in NFL history. So in 2020, they lost at the 2-10-1 Bengals. 2021, they tied versus the 0-8 Lions. 2023, they lost to the 2-10 Cardinals and then the 2-10 Patriots. And then in 2025, they lose at the 3-12 Browns. That's pretty crazy. That's a pretty crazy statistic. So, all right, with that out of the way, let's do some final thoughts. Bryan, I'll let you go first.
I was at 2 of those games, and I know Dave was at 1. And of those 5 games, and that's very disappointing. Speaking of which, Jeff, I haven't had a chance to tell you yet. I am going to the game on Saturday or Sunday because my son bought me tickets for Christmas, which was wonderful, and it's great, and I want to share it with him. And now I'm thinking that this might be a night game now, and that just has me worried because I don't do well in the cold anymore. So I don't do well at night games either. But let's go ahead and talk about this whole thing. They had an opportunity. They showed that they weren't good enough to plan well enough to win that game. That's it. I thought the players were good enough to win that game. Even without DK Metcalf, I thought the players were good enough to win that game. There's going to be so much more said about DK Metcalf after this, saying that he let the team down. He did, in a manner of speaking. Yeah, he did. But that team, whether they were uninspired, whether they were scared, they weren't ready to go ahead and seize the day. And that's the team that you want. And that's the team that the fans crave. And I just feel like the preparation was misplaced. And Mike Tomlin comes in and says, well, it's a hard fought, AFC North game. Well, that's not good enough anymore, but it's not going to change.
All right, Dave, final thoughts?
Yeah, it almost felt like this team kind of portrayed on the field what we as fans were feeling about this weekend. I fully expected this game not to matter. I really did. But the moment the Packers' second quarterback went down and the third had to come into the game, that just kind of, it was done after that point. They just felt like a team that was ready to just come out there and get through the motions and get out of town, more than a team that was out there ready to grab a hold of and go after the division. They didn't go after the division in this game. They sat back and tried to just hope the Browns would screw it up enough that they would get the division. If you were to tell me coming into this game, some of this stuff, that the Steelers would have more first downs, more total yards, more time of possession, win the turnover battle by 2, and have less penalties. If you were to tell me that, I would assume that the Steelers won this game by double digits. And instead, they only put 6 points on the board. If you want anything to feel better about next week, just remember this. The Steelers are going from playing one of the best defenses in the NFL to one of the worst. So maybe they can hopefully get something figured out. But this is another one of those laser-focused weeks. I think there was a little bit too much distraction last week of we might be division champs before we even step on the field. I don't know if that was the case or not. It just didn't seem like they were prepared like they had been the last 3 weeks.
All right. That's good. I forgot the super chat here. Steel Dog 88 gave us $5 and said it was interesting to go for it on 4th down, but was that on Rodgers or Tomlin? Trying to figure out which one he's talking about. I guess that would have been the go ball to Scotty Miller instead of,
or the 4th and 10. I thought that one was weird with 3 timeouts. I thought they'd punt that one.
Well, especially with the defense playing the way they had.
Yeah.
And so but I also understand that you would need a touchdown anyways, because this game was just a mess. We'll just leave it at that. It was a mess. Yeah. So
can I bring up one other thing?
Sure.
It's not a super chat. But Tebow says this: I will say, if you would have told me this team will be playing for 10 wins and the division in week 18, I assume it meant before the season started, I would have been okay with that. That being said, super disappointed in them in the present. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You can still be disappointed by where you are, even if you would have taken it 4 months ago.
All right. This has been a disappointing show because it was a disappointing performance by the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're not going anywhere. We have week 18. It is Ravens week. It is for the division. You're down now, but we got to get excited. And I know that's going to take some time, but we're going to be with you every step along the way this week. Make sure you check us out on our podcast platform, those podcasts that are not live on YouTube, like My Let's Ride. Dave has his Mike Tomlin press conference recap podcast, as well as the Pittsburgh Standard Time. Bryan with the Here We Go Steelers show and Bad Language. Check all those out. And make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. SteelCurtainNetwork.com, where your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Check it out early and often every single day. But fellas, thanks for your time. We'll see you next week. Well, Bryan won't because he'll be at the game, but Dave and I will be there to recap Week 18. Take it easy, everyone.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.